The MSI Stealth 15M is a super lightweight 1.7 kilogram gaming laptop. On paper, it can keep up with some of the flagship laptops that we've had in the past, as well as some gaming desktops. But can it? Let's find out. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Epic PC channel, and today we're sitting down with the MSI 15M Stealth, an ultra lightweight gaming laptop, but it does have some pretty beefy specifications. It features an RTX 3060 laptop GPU, and this is one of the first laptops to feature an RTX 3060 and definitely one of the first ultra lightweight laptops that features an RTX 3060. It is the Max-Q design in this specific model, and that's going to be interesting to compare to the Max-P. It also features an Intel i7 11375H backed up with 16 gigs of RAM. It also has a 1TB M.2 PCIe SSD, which is way more than the 500 gig M.2 PCIe found on the Razer 15. Now, the RTX 3060 is not one of the flagship graphics cards from NVIDIA, so you can't rely solely on pure performance when hitting the 144 refresh rate on the panel on the 15M. But luckily, NVIDIA has put some pretty interesting features into the 3000 series graphics cards, and these are namely Dynamic Boost 2.0, Whisper Mode 2.0, DLSS, the resizable bar technology, and of course, being an RTX card, you also have ray tracing. Now, we don't have all day to go over each one of these features in depth, but two of the more important ones for this specific machine is the resizable bar as well as the DLSS technology. Now, the resizable bar is a new technology from NVIDIA and Intel, and it uses a dedicated PCIe lane to improve the performance between the CPU and the GPU. It allows the CPU to dynamically call information from the GPU when it's needed, rather than streaming it constantly. At the end of the day, this is going to improve your performance and not have as much load on your CPU. Another important feature from NVIDIA is DLSS, and this stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling. Now, NVIDIA has put a lot of effort into AI and deep learning, and it's a huge market for them. But this is a combination between these efforts as well as gameplay, and uses AI to render a lot of the pixels on your screen and not using the compute power of the GPU. This will save a lot of compute power on your GPU, and again, at the end of the day, will improve performance and FPS. And this is really good in combination with something like RTX, because you need this added performance to do ray tracing. And of course, having a ray tracing capable card in this specific machine, you are able to play things like Minecraft in all of its ray traced beauty. The benchmarks of the 15M are honestly a bit hit and miss. In some of the AAA games I tested, I had way better performance than I expected, but in some of the games I expected this to absolutely kill, it really did fall flat, such as in games like CSGO. The average FPS in CSGO was around 140, with sharp dips down 100 to 120. This honestly made the game feel stuttery, and I thought something might be wrong with the laptop, but after restarting and upgrading the drivers, I was left with the same results. In games like Tomb Raider, on the other hand, running at Ultra, the game pulled around 65 FPS on average. Dropping the graphics down to medium would give an extremely playable experience. In Doom, the average FPS was around 210, but during gameplay and action it had some dips, but it was still a really good gameplay experience. What really surprised me was the performance of Metro with ray tracing. The average FPS with ray tracing on high was around 70 FPS, which is playable for a AAA game using ray tracing. The Razer Blade 15, although having a score of around 90 to 100, featured an RTX 3070. So it's really good to see the MSI 15M performing this well using ray tracing. I think the biggest letdown for me in general was just the amount of load times that it took for the 15M. In games like Metro, you'd be left waiting minutes to get to the actual menu to play the game, and this was honestly frustrating and was a bit of a headache in general. On the benchmark side, we're going to compare it head-to-head against the Razer Blade 15, which we reviewed a few weeks ago. In Firestrike Ultra, the 15M scored 14,072, while the Blade scored 18,688. This was a drop of 28% compared to the Blade, but the Blade does feature an RTX 3070, and the difference in CUDA cores for these two machines is 28%, so this is quite an expected result. In TimeSpy, the 15M scored 5,958 and the Blade scored 8,327, which was a difference of 33%. It's clear from this test that the Blade 15 has an edge over the 15M in the DirectX 12 tests, even taking into consideration the GPU advantage that the Blade 15 does have. You probably wouldn't run either of these machines on 4K, but in Firestrike Ultra, the 15M scored 3,994, and the Blade 15 scored 5,836 at stock settings. Again, a massive win for the Blade 15 with a jump of 38% over the 15M. The first thing you'll notice about the GP76 is the huge cooling zone at the top, and it's designed like a honeycomb. Now, MSI has directly linked this to the intake at the bottom to make a chamber that flows air from the bottom to the top, and it's actually a really cool design that improves both the usability and the performance in general. You'll notice during gameplay that the palm rests only get to about 30 degrees and the top of it gets to about 46 degrees, taking the brunt of the temperature. Now, this is really great because your palms will not become sweaty during gameplay if you are using the keyboard. The huge problem with this cooling design is the sound though. You're going to get to about 55 decibels if you turn the fans to absolutely max, and this is crazy. Even if you're wearing a noise isolating set of headphones, you're likely to hear that sort of sound. Under normal gameplay situations, you're going to be sitting around 45 decibels, which is a bit lower, and about 35 decibels, which is almost unnoticeable when you're just leaving it at idle. Another problem with this was the mechanical whirring sound of the fan designs in this specific unit. I don't know if it was this specific unit or all of this has the whirring sound, but I did notice it when I pushed it up or was in an extremely quiet room, and this was not great on the ears. The standout feature for the 15M is obviously the fact that it is ultra lightweight. This thing comes in at the whole weight being only 1.7 kilograms, which is absolutely insane when you consider this has both an RTX 3060 as well as an Intel i7 core. The problem is that MSI has cut a lot of corners to reduce the weight on this thing, and it feels a lot more fragile than some of their more expensive and flagship models such as the GP76 and GE76. The 15M features a Full HD or 1080p display in 15.6-inch size. It does also feature 144Hz refresh rate, which has become pretty standard from gaming laptops today. You'd expect to have a high refresh rate gaming laptop, but it's nice to know that MSI has included this on their ultra lightweight gaming laptops. Apart from that, the color accuracy is pretty standard and could be comparable to something like the GP76 Leopard that we reviewed a few weeks ago. And if you tested it up against something like the Razer Blade 15 or a higher model from MSI such as the GE76, it would fall flat in terms of color accuracy. MSI does give you the ability to change the color a little bit using their inbuilt Dragon Center software, and you're able to change between blue light filters, cinema mode, and gaming mode to get the optimal look for you, so it's nice to know that they have those features. The 15M's keyboard is a bit of a letdown, and it definitely shows the fact that they haven't partnered with SteelSeries on this keyboard. Each key has a completely different feel to it, with the enter and spacebar having a very light actuation point and the rest of the keys having a very firm actuation point. This makes for an extremely confusing typing experience and one that I didn't particularly enjoy. It is a low-profile design, which makes it pretty good for things like university and Word documents and things like that, and it has a similar feel to, say, a Mac keyboard in terms of its low-profile design. On the RGB side, it also doesn't feature a per-key controllable RGB setting, so you will have to rely on MSI's own internal software when setting the RGBs up for this specific keyboard. On the other hand, the touchpad is decent and gives a nice clicky response. It would be, again, great for something like office work or uni, but who's going to be using a trackpad for gameplay? You're going to be opting to use an external mouse, and this thing only has 2 USB ports, so if you have an external keyboard and external mouse, you won't be able to plug a USB in there. The biggest surprise for me was, in fact, the speakers. Now, the GP76 that we've reviewed a few weeks ago had huge issues with the speakers being mounted on the bottom. These are mounted on the bottom on this specific machine, however, it didn't have the same issue where the sound sounded like it was coming from under your desk. The sound was actually quite good, and I would highly recommend it. It was great for immersion. So, really good job on this one, MSI. On the right side, it features 2 Type-C connectors, a standard USB 3.1 and a HDMI cable. On the left side, it features a battery light indicator, 1 USB 3.1, 1 micro SD card reader, and the battery plug-in point. Interestingly, the battery plug-in point is in the middle of the IOs rather than being at the back of the computer, and this is extremely annoying. Often at times during gameplay and typing, I'd find that I'd bump into the cable and it might fall out, and this would be terrible for gameplay because if you were to bump out the cable during gameplay, you're likely to fall back to the integrated graphics on the CPU, and this would drastically reduce your FPS. The internals on the 15M are also a bit of a letdown compared with some of the other models from MSI. The whole bottom of the motherboard is covered by protective plastic, with the M.2 slot also being covered by the same plastic protection. Unfortunately, the 15M only has one M.2 slot, albeit a 1TB M.2. If you want to increase the memory on this machine, you'll have no other option but removing the M.2 and replacing it with a new drive and reinstalling Windows and all of your games. We were also unable to see the RAM slots as they were positioned on the other side of the motherboard, so in order to swap your DIMMs, you'll have to pull out the entire motherboard and swap the memory for a larger memory version, and this can be daunting and can also void your warranty. There is spare room for a bigger battery in the chassis, and I'm unsure why companies like MSI leave this space. Maybe it's so they can use the space for their higher spec versions of the 15M, but I have to say, if you do have the spare space to put in a bigger battery, then you may as well put in a bigger battery because it's not going to be an extreme expense to include a bigger battery on this specific machine. To be honest, I wouldn't call the 15M a gaming laptop. I'd call it a workstation with gaming capabilities. But if you're going to advertise to people that it's a gaming laptop and send it to us for review as a gaming laptop, then we're going to treat it as one. If you're interested in a laptop that's great at gaming performance, then we'd highly recommend that you check out something like the MSI GP series or GE series, which is going to have a lot more performance than this specific machine. But we are talking about an ultra lightweight machine, so it is great for things like work and university, and at a pinch, if you really wanted to play games like CSGO and League of Legends, if you're bored, then this thing will do it with ease. At the time of review, this is trading at an extreme premium, and this is around $3,000 Australian. So you are paying a premium for features like the new CPU range from Intel, the 11th gen, and you also are paying a premium for the RTX 3060. And these won't give you much features over the previous CPU range from Intel, and it's also the same features that all of the 3000 series GPUs have. So you got to keep that in consideration when thinking about purchasing this machine or something else that maybe fits your budget better. Hi guys, thank you so much for checking out the video on the 15M Stealth. If you like the content, then feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, if you're interested in a full review, then you can check out the website in the links in the description. In this video, we're giving away the GH70 MSI headset. So if you're interested in that giveaway, you can also join the Gleam links in the description. It's completely free, so feel free to enter that. And as always, guys, have a great day.